Book Fair, Children's Literature for Grown-Ups. I'm your host, Anthony, and we are approaching the end of the spring semesters for college students and near the end of the school year for students. This is another installment of the weekly book report. I've got some new releases that are coming up, as well as a few articles that I'd like to highlight here. The first article that I have here is saying that new PEN America report finds school book bans at record levels. The summary that I'm reading from comes from Publishers Weekly, and it highlights a few important things here, such as there are more than 4,000 book bans in the first half of this school year, showing that book bans are increasing year over year. Of the 4,000 book bans that have taken place so far this year, Florida tops the list with 3,135 book bans across 11 school districts, 1,600 of which came from Escambia County Public Schools. A distant second place of book bans came from Wisconsin with 481 book bans, 444 of those, meaning nearly all, stemming from a single complaint. Iowa comes third with 142 bans, followed closely by Texas with 141 bans. Book bans continue to use obscenity claims and hyperbolic rhetoric about porn in schools to justify banning books about sexual violence and LGBTQ+ topics, as well as attacking themes of race and racism by advancing rhetoric disparaging critical race theory, woke ideology, and efforts to ensure library collections are diverse and inclusive. I will link both to the Publishers Weekly summary of this report as well as the PEN America report in the description of this podcast episode. However, it is not all negative. The next article, 5 publishers join lawsuit to stop Iowa book banning law. In a release this week, Hachette, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Simon & Schuster, and Sourcebooks announced that they have joined the initial plaintiffs, which include Penguin Random House and Iowa State Education Association. 4 renowned authors, including Laurie Halse Anderson, John Green, Miranda Lowe, and John Pickhout, and a group of teachers and students. We, as publishers, are uniting in our unwavering commitment to stand with educators, librarians, students, authors, and readers against the unconstitutional censorship measures being imposed by the state of Iowa, the publisher said in a joint statement. Now more than ever, we must stand firm with our authors and readers to defend the fundamental right to read and the freedom of expression. In a 49-page December 29th order and opinion, Judge Stephen Locker preliminarily enjoined 2 key provisions of the law, finding its sweeping restrictions were unlikely to satisfy the First Amendment under any standard of scrutiny. In a rebuke to Iowa lawmakers, Locker said that he was unable to locate a single case upholding the constitutionality of a school library restriction even remotely similar to Senate File 496, and said state lawmakers had sought to impose a puritanical pall of orthodoxy over school libraries. Furthermore, Locker suggested that the law was a solution in search of a problem. The state presented no evidence that student access to books depicting sex acts was creating any significant problem in the school setting, much less to the degree that would justify across-the-board removal. At most, Locker concluded, the state presented evidence that some parents found the content of a small handful of books to be objectionable. Changing up sources here, this next piece comes from the Children's Book Review and highlights an episode of the Growing Readers podcast. The Power of Pets, Place, and Personal Experience. Lauren Castillo on the inspirations behind Just Like Millie. In this interview, author and illustrator Lauren Castillo talks about her picture book, Just Like Millie, and its themes of shyness, anxiety, courage, and friendship. Her personal experiences that inspired the story, including interactions with a shy child and her own dogs, setting the book in her hometown of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and including local Easter eggs in the illustrations. I'll make sure to link both the article and the episode of the Growing Readers podcast in the description of the podcast below. Next, let's highlight a few recent releases for the month of April, starting with A Game of Noctis by Deva Fagan. On the island of Dentessa, everything from commerce to social standing is determined by how one performs in the thousand of possible games registered in the magical Book of Play. As low-ranking participants in the great game, 12-year-old Pia and her grandfather are just barely getting by, And when Gramps is stripped of his status and sent to dwell on the Pawn Isles, Pia must risk everything to raise the money needed to rescue him. She joins the Sea Foxes, a team of young players organized by the brilliant Vittoria Aslani, who intends to enter the annual Noctis tournament, an ever-changing game of wits and strategy with life-and-death stakes, and a fabulous prize in the form of more than enough money to save Gramps. To win, Pia and her new friends must compete against better-trained, better-equipped teams and contend with the Goddess of Death, in the process discovering the secret behind the great game. Fagan skillfully blends adventure and team-based competitions set against a memorable Mediterranean-leaning environment and populated by eclectic characters described as having various skin tones. Clever, warm-hearted, fast-paced, and energetic, this tale has much to offer. This book is recommended for ages 10 and up. The next new release is The Night War by Kimberly Burbaker Bradley. This well-paced novel by Bradley, set in 1942 occupied France, poses thoughtful questions about religious divides and parallels through the experience of 12-year-old Miriam Schreiber, a German Jew who fled Berlin for Paris with her parents after Kristallnacht. When all the Jews in her neighborhood are rounded up, Miri is separated from her parents and escapes with 2-year-old neighbor Nora. Saved by a Catholic nun, the children are sent to Chenonceau, where the Château de Chenonceau straddles the border of occupied France and French-controlled Vicky. Nora is given to a Catholic family while Miri, pretending to be Christian and going by Mary, is sent to a convent school, where she discovers that 2 nuns are secretly helping to smuggle Jews across the border. Suffering from fear and anxiety and plagued by guilt for choices she believes she failed to make to save her mother and Nora's father, Miri, aided by a mysterious, imperious elderly woman, takes on risky responsibilities. Miri's highly credible emotions and actions make for a deeply sympathetic character facing increasingly dangerous and suspenseful circumstances. This book is recommended for ages 9 to 12. The next notable release is Song of the Six Realms by Judy I. Lin. 17-year-old Gu Shui has spent her life as an apprentice kin player at one of the most esteemed entertainment houses in the family kingdom of Qi. Though a talented musician, Shui has few prospects outside of her contract. Her family was executed, and her only remaining uncle can't support them both as a traveling poet. Then Shui finds a patron in the enigmatic Duke Ming Jinglang, who buys out her contract after the pair team up to fend off a horrifying monster during a private performance. Upon arriving at his isolated mountain estate, Shui discovers the handsome yet awkward Jinglang is the Duke of Dreams, an immortal ruler of the celestial realm. Initially overwhelmed by the Celestials' potentially deadly political maneuvering, Shui pushes her abilities, channeled through her qin, to their limits to help Jinglang unlock hidden memories of his deceased mentor, who was on the verge of uncovering a conspiracy that could shake the foundations of the ethereal realms. Author Lin weaves together poetry, music, and Chinese folklore to compose a gorgeously written, captivating story of love, grief, and family that's anchored in a vibrant world of danger and intrigue. This book is recommended for ages 13 and up. The final release for me to highlight this week is The Black Girl Survives in This One, a short story collection edited by Desiree S. Evans and Saraciea J. Fennel. Using authentic voices to detail Black experiences through a horror lens, debut creator Evans and Fennel aim to ensure that Black girls survive their gruesome respective situations via a stellar lineup of 15 Black writers, including Zakiya Dahlia Harris, Justina Ireland, and Brittany Morris. In this unforgettable collaboration, L.L. McKinley sets the tone with the fast-paced, spine-chilling Harvesters, in which teens attend a house party that goes awry and ends up being haunted by monsters in a ghost cornfield. Other stories feature genre-bending themes of fantasy, romance, sci-fi. Courtney Nash's Welcome Back to the Cosmos paints a terrorizing picture of a space explorer struggling to do her job while remembering the myths her mother told her about beings stealing faces. Through vivid dialogue and descriptions of ancestral practices like hoodoo, Black culture remains at the forefront of each story. This book is recommended for ages 12 and up. And this concludes another episode of The Book Report. Thank you so much for listening to The Book Fair, Children's Literature for Grown-Ups. I look forward to exploring more new releases for you, and as always, I'll talk at you next time.